Hello everyone, in this video I will explain how to replace the lower control arms on 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma pickup trucks. Step number 1. Park the truck on a flat surface. Set the emergency brake and place blocks in front and behind the rear wheels. Lift the front part of the truck using a floor jack and place jack stands under the frame for safety. 2. Next, remove the front wheel lug nuts using an impact tool and a 21mm socket. Once you have removed all the lug nuts, proceed to remove the front wheels. 3. Remove the bolts that hold the lower skid plate with a ratchet and a 12mm socket and proceed to remove the skid plate. 4. Remove the bolt and nut that holds the shock absorber to the lower control arm holding the bolt with a 19mm wrench and remove the nut using a ratchet or an impact tool and a 19mm socket. 5. Remove the lower ball joint nut cotter pin shown in the image with needle nose pliers. 6. Next, remove the lower ball joint nut using a ratchet or impact tool and a 24mm socket. 7. Next, apply light pressure against the bottom side of the control arm with a floor jack and proceed to remove the two bolts that hold the base of the ball joint using a ratchet or a 19mm socket as shown in the image. 8. Remove the ball joint retaining bracket with a ball joint separator tool similar to the one shown in the image. 8a. Note, if you don't have access to a ball joint separator tool, the bracket can be separated from the ball joint after the control arm has been removed by placing the bracket over blocks of wood and hitting the stud of the old ball joint with a hammer to separate it. 9. Paint an alignment mark displaying the relationship between the cam bolt alignment washer and the frame of the truck and proceed to remove the nut from the rear bolt that fastens the lower arm with a 19mm wrench, holding the bolt with the wrench and using a ratchet or an impact tool and a 19mm socket to remove the nut. Note, applying penetrating lubricant to the bolt makes it easier to remove the nut. 10. Next, same as the other side, paint an alignment mark that shows the relationship between the cam bolt alignment washer and the frame of the truck and proceed to remove the front nut in the same way using a 19mm wrench to hold the bolt and removing the nut using a ratchet or impact tool and a 19mm socket. Once the nut has been removed, proceed to remove the bolt. 11. Next, apply penetrating lubricant and proceed to remove the front bushing using adjustable or locking pliers. If necessary, drive the bushing outward with a brass punch and hammer as shown in the image. 12. Once all the bolts have been removed, proceed to lower the floor jack and remove the lower control arm completely. If needed, pry it out using a pry bar as shown in the image and holding it with one hand to prevent it from falling to the floor. 13. Install the new lower control arm in its original position. Apply a light coat of anti-seize paste to the rear bolt and install it in its original position, making sure that the cam bolt alignment washer is installed facing upwards as shown in the image and slightly tighten the nut for the moment. 14. Next, apply a light coat of anti-seize to the front bushing and install it in its original position as shown in the image. 15. Next, install the front bolt in its original position and slightly tighten the nut. Place the lower control arm in its original position by applying pressure against it with a floor jack. Install the remaining components in the reverse order in which they were removed, ensuring that the lower ball joint nut and bolts that fasten the ball joint retaining bracket are tightened to the specs listed in your owner's manual. Next, apply pressure with the floor jack against the control arm so it mimics the position when the truck is on the ground and proceed to tighten the nuts to the specs listed in your owner's manual. 16. Install the grease fittings with an 8mm wrench and proceed to apply grease using a grease gun. Fill the screws in such a way that the grease comes out slightly from the sides of the lower control arm. Repeat the complete procedure on the other control arm. Next, install the skid plate back on and tighten the bolts to the specs listed in your owner's manual. 17. Install the wheels and partially tighten the wheel lug nuts. 17a. Lower the truck to the ground and proceed to tighten the lug nuts to the specs listed in your owner's manual. 18. Take the truck for a test drive to ensure that the truck drives normal without pulling to one side. Note, it is highly recommended to have a qualified repair facility perform a wheel alignment to ensure that the tires will not wear unevenly. Have a wonderful day.